All right, welcome back, guys. MIL-SPEC watches here. We'll go ahead and start out with the wristwatch check, covering the watch that we're going to cover. But if you already read the title, then you already know. So on the wrist is a two-door Pelagos FXD Marine Nationale 21 MIL-SPEC type watch. Absolutely love this watch. We'll keep this watch, pass it down to my sons. Beautiful watch. So what do we have here? IWC 5002 Transitional. That's right. It's the extra special one. Haha. All right. So, as a watch enthusiast, I love MIL-SPEC type watches. Was in the military. I'm a military history buff. So, I obviously the name of the channel, MIL-SPEC Watches, love MIL-SPEC type gear. That includes watches. So, as we know, there's military MIL-SPEC type aviation watches. IWC is kind of like the leader, in today's market for aviation type pilot's watches. But back in World War II, there were several watch companies that also made aviation watches. So even now you have like Breitling's Navitimer. It's a nice watch. I like it. I like the history behind it. I just find the dials way too busy for my taste and for my eyes. I like a little more clarity, right? You also have other brands that make MIL-SPEC type watches, in the past, Rolex and their MIL subs, Panerai Louboutin Marinas, they still make those, but the history behind the Italian Navy and those watches. Well, so today we're going to discuss aviation type MIL-SPEC watches, specifically the B. Urin designs. I believe the B. Urin was initially designed by Longines, but someone please correct me if I'm wrong. Would love to know the history if it goes deeper than Longines in 1929. So, as we know, Germany had one of the strongest air force during World War II, the German Luftwaffe, German Air Force, and they were looking for precision type instrument tool watches for their pilots. So, who did they go to? A. Lange & Söhne, obviously. To this day, Lange & Söhne makes some high quality watches. Very expensive, but damn, they are worth it. They're beautiful. You can see the engineering behind those watches. So Lange & Söhne cannot keep up with the contracted obligations to make, specific numbers of watches for the German Luftwaffe. So they look to other companies like Laco, Stover, Bempi, and of course, IWC. So even today, Laco and Stover, they continue to make these B types and A type B. Urin type watches. You can look up the differences between the A types and the B types, but this one here, in my opinion, is more in line with the A type B. Urin watches. So those B. Urins actually stood for, this is a short name for Beobachtungsuhr, which is German for observation watch, but for short, of course, they call them B. Urin. So since this is a military aviation type of watch, it should have certain features, specifications to aid pilots while they're flying combat missions and sorties, right? So back in World War II, these watches were 55 millimeters in diameter. That's huge, right? But, a pilot in those days was flying at 10,000 feet. They're in weather, it's cold. They have these goggles on. They need to be able to see this watch when they look down. It can't be a 36 millimeter watch where they're squinting and fighting to even see what it says, right? So it was a bigger type of watch. It had Arabic numerals, which had a better relation with scientific and professional matters, I guess, at the time. Also had a large onion crown, as you can see this one still does. A lot of the pilots were wearing these big thick gloves. Like I said, it's cold up there, so they need to be able to grab that crown and manipulate it if need be. Also, this has an anti-magnetic case to ensure that the watch, reads accurate, even after it's exposed to some magnetic fields, which could happen during flights. There's a lot of flight instruments, compasses inside of that plane, navigational aids. So it also have to have a hack-capable movement for precise reading and resetting of the time. Like I said, these pilots were flying combat missions with these tools. So mission success is everything in combat and in war. So these tools were being used to aid that mission. So if one of these watches failed, it could have been a catastrophic and mission failure, and even ended up with them losing their lives possibly. So you can see this watch still has the triangle with the two dots at the top, which a lot of the B-Orns in the past also had. So that's used so that you can use a watch as a solar compass to find the Earth's true north in conjunction while using other devices like a sextant or a compass. So these watches also had a very long buffalo leather strap so they can go over those thick, flight jackets that the pilots wore at the time. So now that we covered a little bit of history, let's start talking about this watch here. So in 2002, IWC launched sort of like let's go back and look at the B-Orn again and launch the Big Pilot 5002. So that watch was 46 millimeter case diameter, 15.5 millimeters thick. Of course, it has an anti-magnetic protection inside of it, so it does make the case thicker. And it had a satin brush finish. Basically a MIL-SPEC type watch, right? Like I said earlier, it's more of a reference to the A-type B-Orns. So you can see here it comes on this leather strap. I prefer NATOs. I don't see these on a lot of NATOs, although this is more true than, the original watches. They were on these buffalo leather type straps, and you can see here's an IWC deploying clasp. It is an absolute beautiful watch. You can see it has a 7-day power reserve as indicated here at 3 o'clock. Also has a date window with white backing and black numbers, so it is clear to see. You can see this one does have the 9 number, which some of the newer Big Pilots do not have. So why is this one called the Transitional? Why is it special? So the original 5002, when it first came out, the movement that it had was a slower beat type movement, which it was beating at 18,000 VPH. So it was a slower movement. Enthusiasts were complaining that it wasn't, keeping accurate time. So IWC went back in, I believe it was 2005, and developed a new movement that beat at 21,600 VPH, ensuring that this was a more accurate movement. And this is the movement that they had planned to put into the next model, the 5004. I mean, they did put this into the next model, the 5004. And that movement was the 51110. Right, so that started in late 2005 and early 2006. So, like I said, this new movement was created for the 5004. That was going to, be the newer model, to move ahead from the 5002 reference. So, from what I found and what I read, it was for around 12 months that IWC produced a transitional model that still retained the 5002 original dial and the white calendar display, but using that newer movement that was put in the 5004. From my research, this was limited to 250 transitional units. That's what I've been able to find, but please correct me if I'm wrong. And also this newer transitional, on the crown, it no longer had the fish that the original 5002 had, right? But it had the Probus Scafusia marking on the crown instead of the original fish, as you can see here. But, also this is not like a confirmation that you have a transitional, because from what I read, IWC, when they were servicing the original 5002s, they would replace the original fish crown with these new Probus Scafusia crowns. I read there were some issues with the original 5002 crowns. And also you have to be careful when you're screwing this down to not over tighten it, because it could damage the watch. You'd have to get it serviced. So yeah, I absolutely love this watch. I absolutely think it is a MIL-SPEC type watch. I like this better than any of the newer Big Pilots. I haven't seen any Big Pilot come out since this model that in my opinion looks more MIL-SPEC or has a cleaner looking dial than this one. So I know they made like a heritage version, and all different types of Big Pilot models have come out since the original 5002. But this is the one I prefer. And now I want to compare it to another tool watch that I use just for size references. This is not an aviation watch here. So this is the Faber Luba Raider Bivouac 9000. It is 48 millimeters in diameter and 18.7 millimeters thick. It has a titanium case, bi-directional rotating bezel, screw-in crown, sapphire crystal, double-sided anti-reflective coating, and a water resistance of 30 meters. And so here you can see the thickness comparison and the size comparison. Now, I don't normally wear this watch, and I'm going to do a full review on this watch. I use this as a tool watch. When I go hiking in the mountains or exploring in the mountains, I take this watch with me, and I wear it on my right wrist, or I hang it on my gear where I can easily just, look down at it. As you know, in the mountains, as you're going, this has a built-in altimeter. And you can use it in other ways to determine like change in air pressure. I'll do a full review on this watch, but I use this as a tool watch. That's why I got it. So IWC Big Pilot 5002 Transitional. What do you guys think about this watch? If you had the chance to buy this watch, would you buy it? Do you think it's a future classic? Do you think it's MIL-SPEC? What do you think about this watch? Because I absolutely love this watch and will pass it down to my sons. Never getting rid of this watch. It is a keeper. All right, guys, MIL-SPEC watches, over and out. All right, so I did want to add that one way that I've read to determine if you have a IWC 5002 transitional model is if you have a serial number that starts with 314 and up, that you more than likely have a transitional model. But please let me know, what information do you guys have to determine if you have an IWC 5002 transitional as opposed to the slow beat movement, besides doing some recordings of the watch and doing a time lapse and doing that type of measurement, which I've read that you can also do to determine whether you have the slow beat or the more improved movement. All right, MIL-SPEC watches, over and out.